this computer. All right. Let's try it.
Let's do it.
Next time, let's try Instagram. Maybe Instagram's a little easier. I thought this would be easier, but it's not. All right. So, well, thank you so very much, Mary Hart, for your time today. I would love for you, if you don't mind, for us to start off our chat this evening with just introducing yourself. And then we will get into all things self-regulation and the Thrive app.
Sounds great. So my name is Mary Hart MacLeod. I am a pediatric occupational therapist. I have a passion for working with kiddos, especially the 10 and under crowd. Those are my people. And I have been an OT for 8 years now, I believe. I think over 8 years now. And my entire work has been with pediatrics. I started off in the school systems, and then I moved to an outpatient hospital-based practice where I see kiddos with a variety of different diagnoses, from autism to Down syndrome to CP to kiddos who just have sensory processing challenges, ADHD, or who are just undiagnosed and we just need a little bit more support to get through developing their different activities of daily living.
Awesome. And I would say the thing that I love so much about you, when I first met you, I remember when James Preston, we had first had our assessment, and I was drawn to you by the way you spoke with your families. And it was just like every week we would go in, and just the way in which you would break down the content and the material for families, as well as kids. I just thought, oh my God, here's a gem, right? You find those providers and those therapists that are truly in the right field, right? Like they are meant to be in that field and are doing amazing with it. And that was you. And I always love the way, again, especially for there were some families, it seemed like the kids, the families were, the kids had autism, only because I could see in which the terminology you were using was similar terminology that our therapist was using with us. And so I just, kind of assumed, which probably I shouldn't, but I appreciated the way you really held the family's hand in navigating that space of autism. Never really using the terms unless the family was ready to kind of, identify that with such. So I was always drawn to that. And I knew that you were that therapist that I wanted to pitch the idea to the app to in the very beginning, because of your approach and the way that you work with your kids in the clinic.
Well, thank you so much for your kind words. It's really nice to hear that, and that kind of what I'm doing is landing and resonating with families. I've always said that I think I've been an occupational therapist my entire life. I've been babysitting since I was, I don't know, in elementary school probably, and doing obstacle courses and helping kids with their self-care skills and things like that. And I found what I was meant to do, and it's really special. And really one of my passions is working with families and guiding them to that light bulb moment of understanding, oh my gosh, that's why my child does that. Like, that makes sense. It kind of puts all those different pieces together and demystifies things that feel like a total overwhelming mystery, and then kind of taking those next steps. So yeah, I am excited and so happy to be here.
Yes. And what I was saying, you always had that ability and the capacity to normalize what the child was experiencing, right? It wasn't, oh yeah, that's because of autism, or that's because of, name whatever diagnosis. You really had that ability to say, well, I too need a movement break if I've been sitting down all day in the classroom. Like, you were always able to just understand the needs of the child and really help the parents understand normal kind of routine behaviors for any child outside of whatever the diagnosis or disorder may be. So yeah.
I think that's really, really the point of it. Every child is unique in their own way. And so looking at them as an individual and how they interact with their world, how they interact with their caregivers, how they interact with their peers, I think is the most important part.
Absolutely. All right, so let's dive into all things the app. So just for our audience, Mary Hart, as I said before, was one of the first therapists that I went to pitch the idea of the Thrive app, because I wanted to make sure that the app was a practical resource for kids, autistic kids, kids with executive functioning challenges, just the array that could really benefit from a resource as such. So I met with Mary Hart early on and really got her feedback and input. And like I said, she was one of our therapists that worked with us on kind of fine tuning the design. So before we really start getting right into the app, if we could just start with explaining what is self-regulation.
Sure. So self-regulation is something that every single human has to do on some level on a daily basis. It is the ability to regulate your responses to everything going on around you. So it's your ability to know that when you're walking through the grocery store and you walk past someone and they, graze your shoulder, you are able to figure out, oh, okay, that was a person. This is what I need to do next. I just keep walking down the aisle. It's the ability to, when you are in a business meeting and you get a really exciting email, you're really excited about something, but it's not really the time to express that excitement, being able to say, okay, rein it in. And then when you get home or you get outside, call your best friend and gush over whatever it was. So it's that ability to monitor and make those decisions about what you're going to do, how you're going to behave and respond in different situations. And it really is affected by a variety of different functions. So one that we think of is sensory processing. So your sensory processing and how your body responds to your environment affects your ability to self-regulate. Self-regulation also brings into play emotional regulation and how you process and feel your emotions. It's a heavily cognitive process, so there's a lot of thinking involved in it. There's a lot of different things that come into play, even just your physiology. So right now in North Carolina, it is allergy season and lots of people are feeling pollen and you get stuffy, your ears are plugged, you just feel yucky. And that too can affect your self-regulation. So if you're not in a great place because you're feeling sick, then your ability to regulate your behavior might be a little bit off. You might be a little bit shorter to get frustrated or shorter to get angry because your physiology is out of whack. So there are a lot of different factors that come in to affect how you respond to everyday activities and situations.
And when we think about our kiddos on the spectrum, our kiddos who have challenges with executive functioning, organizing, planning, as well as our kids that have ADD and ADHD, how does self-regulation play into those disorders?
It plays into it pretty significantly, but even so, self-regulation is something that all children and all humans are developing from a young age. So it's something that really starts in infancy and begins to develop very early on. And it's something that I think we all are continually working on and continually trying to address within our daily lives. So it's not something that we say when a child is 5 years old, we expect them to be able to self-regulate. I think that's a very inadequate sort of response. Once kids are getting into early elementary school is when we see them starting to use more adaptive behaviors and more self-regulation skills. But it's something that is highly affected by your frontal lobe and your executive functioning, which is developing well into adulthood. So globally, for everybody, it is something that is always a work in progress. So when we have kiddos who are on the spectrum, have executive functioning challenges, other related things going on, it can be just that much harder for them to develop those self-regulatory skills. Some children, with or without a diagnosis, that ability to regulate and monitor their behavior and their actions is just a lot harder. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong. It doesn't mean that there's something that is the matter with them. It just, that's how their brain and their body work. And so for them, they have to work a little bit harder in that area. Maybe something else comes really easy to them, but that's just one of the things that they need to work harder on. Especially with respect to kids on the spectrum, we know that emotional regulation and executive functioning are challenges that are often experienced by that population. And so that can then affect how they engage in different self-regulatory behaviors.
Got you. Now, let's transition over to the Thrive app. And one of the things that how the app really came about and for me back in 2018 now was James Preston was having a really hard time regulating his emotions within his classroom, but also there were so many triggers within his day that began just to overstimulate him, right? The change in the classroom being 3 times as large as the classroom that he had previously been in, the change in routine, the change in peers, the schedule, all of that was overwhelming for James Preston. And it was like he almost couldn't find his grounding, right? He couldn't find that peace and calmness within the day because there were so many disruptions to his routine. So my thought was, there's got to be a better way, right? There's got to be a way that, and he was in therapy, right? He was learning all these really good strategies and skills, but it was hard for him to pull on them at the age of 4, right? So I thought, what if there was if there was a way that we could put all the strategies and resources that he was learning in therapy, but like within arm's reach, right? At a touch of a button. And I just knew that was already out there, right? I just thought, oh, there's got to be that out there. It's 2018. I mean, autism is nothing new. It's, more and more people are being more, in situations, and society is beginning to be more inclusive and accepting. Of course, this is out there, right? Only to find that, no, not really. So, not really. So coming to you and presenting and really pitching the idea for the app over to you, what was it about the app that really kind of hit with you that you thought this could be something that would be very beneficial?
Oh, yes. So I think that when we have kiddos who are coming into therapy and we're working on self-regulation and strategies to support them in their natural environments, one of the struggles that we have as clinic-based clinicians is that we are not with them in their natural environments. Right. And secondary to that, it's not always their parent that's with them in their natural environment. They might be with a teacher, they might be with a grandparent, they might be with, a close family friend. So I think that one of the challenges that we face as clinic-based clinicians is that there's all these grand ideas that we can work on in the clinic of, we have these pictures, we have these tools, but are these portable? Are these really accessible in the child's natural environment? In a way that is easy for the child to access and easy for the caregivers to access? And the answer was really no. And I think one of the other things to go along with that is, in that moment where we're feeling dysregulated at the playground, at the zoo, well, what do we do? There's kind of this moment of panic of where do I start? And knowing that there is something right there that you use on a daily basis, a watch, that can prompt you to begin to use those tools that you have practiced and that you are familiar with, just really spoke to me and made me feel that this was something that would be very valuable to our clients, their caregivers, and it would also be something that they would be super interested in. I mean, what kid doesn't love a good piece of technology these days? And they get it. So not only was it something that would be able to incorporate a therapy tool and strategy, but it was something that incorporated therapy tool and strategy through a medium that was really meaningful to the client. And I think that was what was really, really drew me to the idea. Was it seemed like something that would be accessible on a daily basis. It would be available to the client and caregivers across all environments. And it was something that they would be interested in. It would be something that they would easily be like, oh, my watch, and be able to access and really engage with.
Right. And when you mentioned about, kind of being out in public, whether it's at a, grocery store, theme park, zoo, what have you, the number of times where I felt like we didn't have that visual schedule with us on hand and I needed to make a change. And at that time, I was still learning, right? I was still navigating autism and how it manifests itself within, both of the boys. But just to see the way Adam and James Preston, to have that disruption in their routine, like if that visual schedule said that they were supposed to go car ride to school and, home, but if I needed to maybe run a quick errand in between, no can do. Like it was, yeah. And if I didn't have the pet card that said that, errand or whatever that we need to do, like stop by pharmacy or what have you, dry cleaner, then they just could not understand. They could not, come on to the schedule, right? They couldn't adjust to that change. And there again, it was, if there was a way that I could make this easier for families and the kid, right? To help them understand this change in the routine, again, by the press of a button, right? So then their schedule is updated and they now see there's an errand that mommy or daddy or whomever needs to run, and there's a change in their schedule, and being able to help the child work with that change by, again, going into their toolbox of self-regulation skills.
Exactly. I think that bringing up the visual schedule is another really key piece of it, because I think so often one of the triggers for our kiddos is that change in expectation, change in familiar routine. And that can be very dysregulating. Routine and expectation foster a sense of security and comfort that you know what is happening next in your day. I often bring it back to, I know what's happening in my day every day. I'm planning it out in my head and I'm making those changes as I go along. But if I had someone with me who had to just go along with my day, or I had to be that someone just going along with someone else's day, and I was planning on getting home and playing with my trains, right, but I had to go to the grocery store, I don't know that I would be so pleased with that.
Right.
So I mean, it's a very understandable situation. But if you have a tool that meets the child's needs, and we know that so many kids, autistic and non-autistic, respond so well to visuals. Mm-hmm. If we have a visual that can show, okay, we're adding in the grocery store and then we're going to do trains, sometimes that just little shift can help. And if it still causes a bit of dysregulation, then you also have that toolbox to pull into and use those strategies as well to work through those things. And I think it's super important to start laying those foundations really early in life, because there are so many things in life that are unexpected. If you're, adult and you get to the store and it closed 5 minutes ago, well, what are you going to do? You have to go to another store. And so starting to figure out and guide kiddos in understanding, okay, this changed. I can see the change. We're going to make a plan. I'm going to keep myself together and we're going to go forward is huge. It's not an overnight process. It's not something that, you know, we all just suddenly are okay with. But laying that foundation really early on so they can grow and process it is, I think, really important. And I think that the app and the watch are just going to further support that. And as I said, a way and a modality that is just so meaningful to kids, and something that they will be able to really, really relate to.
So if you are a therapist, an occupational therapist, so if you could speak to kind of your colleagues within the field, what are some things that occupational therapists should consider when thinking that if this app would be a good fit for their client population?
Sure. So I think the first thing to think about is whether the child is at a point in time where they are responding and understanding the concept of pictures, especially line drawings. Those are going to be probably the most accessible on there, but pictures, are they relating a picture to an activity or a picture to an item? That's going to be one of the most meaningful things to have that groundwork laid. And I think that, you know, there are a lot of ways to A, assess if that is happening, and B, if it's not, really start working on that. I think we always need to presume that a child is competent and presume that a child understands what we are presenting to them, and really believe that they get it. And I think that starting there with that foundation is really important. The next step that I would think for the visual schedule side would be, are they familiar with using a visual schedule with picture cards? Are they familiar with using a visual schedule to move through activities? Are they familiar with using a visual schedule to check off activities? Is this a concept that you have introduced, this moving through activities? So that would be for the visual schedule side. For the self-regulation side, I think one of the biggest things is introducing the concept of self-regulation within your sessions, both fully explaining it to the caregivers so that they understand, but also within the child's therapy program, and how you're going to best relate it to them. There are, you know, a myriad of different ways to do that, but starting off with the child so that they understand their different emotions, they understand their different behaviors, they understand kind of their responses to things during the day. That's number one. And then number two, that they have control over that they have the tools within them to regulate their behavior, and that they can do that, and giving them that sense of power and helping them guide themselves to find those tools. Maybe it's just one or two that they really love. Maybe a hug from mom really does the trick 9 out of 10 times. Maybe having bubbles to watch really does the trick. Maybe, you know, listening to a preferred song is something that really helps. Or maybe having, you know, a specific routine of counting down and then talking through a situation is something that really helps them. But so that they have that second step. So first, what is self-regulation? What am I doing? What does my body look like in different scenarios? And two, what are the things that I can do to change how my body is responding? And then recognizing the times in which they need to change or implement a strategy. And this is a lot. This is a ton. And in no capacity do we ever expect a 5 or 6 year old just to, you know, automatically be able to figure this out. It's a process, and it's something that the child works on in conjunction with their caregivers, in conjunction with their teachers and other people who are in their life. So really recognizing that we're starting off in one place introducing this concept and then introducing the app as a way to access those tools that they have already established. I think it's really important to make sure that before introducing the app, that you have talked about the tools, that you have used the tools, that you've worked on the tools, and then adding the app in to complement them as a way to prompt the usage. That's not to say that you don't always kind of figure out and go back and change and add new things, but just this idea that they have the power to control and modify and do things to make themselves feel stable. And that if they need help remembering what they are, they always have it on their watch.
Right. And that is one of the beauties of the watch, right? Of the app, is that we would be able to, or parents would be able to provide therapists, teachers, whomever they would like within their child's treatment team, access to the child's visual schedule, to the child's self-regulation, to all of those different features. The parent would have the ability to grant access to the ones that they feel necessary for that external user.
And I think that that's huge, because I think it's so important for everybody to be consistent and everybody to be on the same page. I mean, we might find something that works brilliantly in therapy, but it doesn't mean anything unless it can be translated to other environments. There might be something that works at home every single time, but how can we get that going in the school setting too? Or at a play date, what if we're on a play date and, something comes up? Could the peer's parent know, oh, okay, he has this watch, and we can go through and find, what he needs at that moment. Right. So I think that that's a really important feature of it.
And what would you say to parents that are looking in, listening to you and thinking, okay, I'm reading about this app. I found kind of stumbled upon the Thrive app, and I want to see if this will be a good resource for my child. What are some things that a parent should think through?
I would say, first off, if your child is in occupational therapy or speech therapy or something, any sort of therapy, definitely speak with your provider and ask about the appropriateness of a visual schedule. If this is something that you guys have worked on in the past, has worked, that sort of thing. Or and then also ask about self-regulation, and think about, have you worked on a specific self-regulation program or, focus? Is this something that you have done? If neither of these are things that you have done, but it sounds like these would be helpful in your life, I would really encourage you to advocate for your child and ask about doing these things. If you're not in therapy, I would definitely encourage you to seek out an evaluation and ask about the use of visual schedules and the use of self-regulation strategies. And that would be really where I would begin. I think that the app is definitely designed to be used under some sort of guidance, just because I think that there are a lot of ins and outs of self-regulation that can be tricky. And we want to make sure that our kiddos are growing in an emotionally healthy and secure way, and we want to support that. So that would be where I would start. If your child has already started on their self-regulation journey, I would start thinking about what sorts of tools have worked for my child. What sorts of things have really stuck out as tools that really seem helpful for them? Are these things that I would want to be able to share in different settings? And what are the next steps that I can push my child to? Are they starting to recognize when they need to use a tool? Are they starting to recognize that they can select what tool they need and pushing it down that line? And I think that the app will really do a nice job of giving them a really visual, tactile, engaging cue as a way to kind of push themselves forward in being more independent and having more control over how they utilize their tools.
Agree. And I love the way you are really setting the stage and really the tone for the use of the app. It's really is a resource that needs the buy-in from the therapist, from the family, and most importantly, from the child. Right. So I love the way that you are highlighting that and really making sure that this is a collaborative approach, and it's an opportunity to really make sure we're bringing together that child's treatment team all within one resource.
And I think that that's what's really important about this too, is I think sometimes we're all on our own islands and really just need to be on the child's island with them, all working together.
Right.
And I'm so excited that this would offer an opportunity for that to occur, and for there just to be so much more ease in utilizing a tool that we know that can be so helpful. I mean, visual schedules and self-regulation tools are so helpful to so many people, children, adults, everyone needs them in their life.
Right.
And this will just elevate their ability to really access and tap into those things on a regular basis across all of their environments.
I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so very much, Mary Hart, for your time this evening. I want to remind everyone that the app will be complete at the end of July, and that's when we will start beta testing. I know, I'm so excited. If you're interested in joining our beta testing group, be sure to reach out to us on any of our social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram at Thriving on the Spectrum and Facebook, Thriving on the Spectrum. So reach out to us, go to our website, www.thrivingonthespectrum.org, and join our newsletter list. That way you will be the first to be informed on any updates that we have on the app. You'll be able to see our design screens that we just released this month that we're very excited about for the app. But also you'll be able to, again, join in and really get glued in within the community and know what is happening with the app. And like I said, we are looking to get started with our beta testing this summer. So thank you, Mary Hart. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out. So thanks for joining us this evening, Mary Hart.
Thank you.